Hello Oakwood. Today we're looking at Acts chapter 20 verses 7 to 12. So if you haven't read the passage yet, please pause the video and have a read of it before returning to it. So, I think the main thing that strikes me about this passage is how matter-of-fact Paul is after just raising Eutychus from the dead. And I don't know about you, but I think I might take a little longer to process what had just happened than appears to be the case here in this passage. It's as if raising people from the dead had become commonplace. Somebody falls from an upper window to their death. Paul shouts, "Don't be alarmed," lies on top of him, prays for him to be restored to life, and then carries on with his conversation, breaking bread and sharing the gospel until morning, because he's going to go away the next day. I think it's quite extraordinary. Now, I know that one of our core values at Oakwood is to be naturally supernatural, but this is taking things to a new level. Now, we know the room was well lit, so the excuse of it being dark isn't available. Perhaps it wasn't a good idea for Eutychus to seat himself in the window. At any rate, Eutychus, having been restored to life, stays until daylight and goes home with the other people in the morning. I just love how Paul seems to take all this in his stride. It shows us the extent to which Paul believed in miracles and how the supernatural was an everyday part of his ministry. Perhaps we might even suggest that Paul could have been a little bit annoyed even by the interruption and wanted to get back to the main purpose of the meeting. However, I think there's a warning to us in this passage to remain awake, to remain alert to what God is saying to us. And to remember, of course, that the real battle takes place in the unseen world. Now, there are many people in this world who have closed their eyes to the things of the Lord, and as a result, the blessings of God have slipped right past them as they've slept through life. In other words, they've been hypnotized by this luring powers of the world and have considered the good life to be just nothing more than a dream. But I want to say this morning, or today at least, that the Christian life and the blessings that come our way are not part of some supernatural dream. God really does bless those who seek a blessing. Now, I'm reminded of the 1980s song by a rock group called The Alarm, and the chorus goes like this. Now, don't panic, I'll speak it rather than sing it, okay? So, where were you hiding when the storm broke? When the rain began to fall, when the thunder and the lightning struck, and the rain and the four winds did howl. Now, you can listen to the whole song on YouTube if you're interested. But there are many Christians who've been sleepwalking through Christianity. And when time comes for God's people to stand and fight the good fight, as we sometimes say, many Christians fall asleep and miss out on the blessings that come from being a faithful soldier of Christ. As Psalm 1 puts it, "Blessed is the one who does not walk in step with the wicked, or stand in the way of sinners, or take or sit in the company of mockers, but whose delight is in the law of the Lord, and who meditates on his law day and night." Now, some people suggest this passage in Acts is just a humorous anecdote to show what happens when preachers go on for too long, but that doesn't really explain why Luke has included it. Eutychus's actions are a tragic mistake that could have and should have been avoided. Given the ancient Mediterranean environment and the broad view of both Luke and Acts, Eutychus's fall seems to be depicted more as a downfall rather than an excusable accident. Bad luck is not responsible for the deadly event. Eutychus is. Eutychus, whose name means lucky, yes, ironic, I know, is fortunate only because Paul is present and able to rescue and reverse the natural repercussions of Eutychus's careless actions. Now, this is a calling and a warning to the spiritually complacent. In this passage, we see behaviours that fall well within the established patterns of Luke and Acts. It's characterized by the marks of faithful worship, and we see both Paul and the Christians in Troas wide awake, worshipping God and breaking bread at midnight. They are in an upper room that is illuminated by lamps, while darkness surrounds them on the outside. Eutychus is the only Christian who behaves otherwise. He falls asleep, which prevents his participation in acts of worship. Moreover, his slumber has tragic consequences. So unlike Peter, Paul, Silas, and the church in Jerusalem, Eutychus is not alert to the work of God. Instead, when he falls asleep, he falls away from the worshipping community into the darkness, to the ground, resulting in his death. So even though we've read in our Bibles about how Jesus' disciples fell asleep at inopportune times, most of Jesus' followers are depicted as being wide awake and alert at pivotal moments when God is at work during the night. Yet here we've got a counter-example. The youthful Eutychus has made a horrible mistake. And just as we begin wondering whether early Christians are now immune to spiritual slumber, we see Eutychus drift away and experience tragic consequences. Just as we begin to contemplate whether a person in an upper room can ever fail as badly as Judas again, we see the foolish Eutychus make a life-threatening mistake. So let us remain wide awake. Let us remain alert and agile to what is going on around us and ready to share the truth of the gospel whenever the opportunity presents itself. Thank you, and have a blessed day.